Well, hello there, do hope you're all well. Now, I've been a avid listener of the James O'Brien show for a good few years now. And what I love about him is his fantastic way he exposes rank hypocrisy. Whether it's those people who were defending Priti Patel and Hat Mancock are now the same ones demanding Nicola Sturgeon to resign. Or whether it's the rank hypocrisy of treatment of Meghan Markle. I think the last monologue I uploaded was the one where he talked about the treatment of Meghan Markle, which basically just stopped me in the tracks, and I just thought it was an absolutely fantastic one. And in this fantastic monologue, he not only exposes the rank hypocrisy of our odious Home Secretary Priti Patel, but the absolute lies that she comes out with. And it's absolutely brilliant. Enjoy.
4 minutes after 11 is the time. Just to be absolutely clear, was it Paul in Edinburgh, the chap in Edinburgh who cast aspersions upon the independence of James Hamilton QC, was talking undiluted twaddle. Arguably libelous, but obviously you're allowed to put these things forward on the programme. I always panic slightly when I think there might be a gap in my knowledge, but he was talking utter rubbish, based as far as we can tell upon some idiot punting lies from Wikipedia as if they were actually true. But hey-ho, welcome to the British media in 2021. 4 minutes after 11 is the time. I'd like to talk about seals and dogs. I don't know whether you do, though. So this is all a bit meta, isn't it? This is all a bit kind of fourth wall. Pull back the curtain on the Wizard of Oz. So I'll talk briefly about Priti Patel first, if I may, because the apparent determination to breach the Geneva Convention is, even by her standards, absolutely remarkable. And, of course, what we have here is yet more evidence that this is government by cruelty. They're not promising to improve your life in any way, shape or form. And at some point, you presume they're going to run out of road. But they are promising to make life even harder for some of the most desperate and vulnerable people on the planet. Some of you have been persuaded that they don't deserve any sympathy or support. And I don't know where the line is between being understanding of that because of the effort that's been put into doing this to you and the people who really are that cruel and unpleasant. I don't know. I know it's perfectly possible to have ended up with incredibly negative views of asylum seekers and refugees if all you've done is consume a diet of red-top right-wing British media and, indeed, sadly, vote leave government for the last few years. You know, Farage, I guess, is another one of his legacies. But Priti Patel, even by her own standards, has embarked upon a project of almost unbelievable stupidity, because the proposals, as I understand them, involve telling other countries that already shoulder much more of the international refugee burden than we do, that they have, and I quote, I heard a big interview this morning, they have a moral duty to take or to take refugees who've managed to get to the UK, where we shoulder a much smaller burden of our international responsibilities than the other countries do. So this is going to be a wonderful piece of diplomacy. No wonder she liked to conduct her conversations with the Israeli government in secret, because hopefully this one's going to play out in public. She's going to have to march into Berlin, where, of course, 1 million Syrian refugees have been rehoused in the last few years. She's going to have to march into Berlin and say, we hardly take anyone. We took 30,000 last year. You took 110,000. I haven't got the numbers in front of me, but they're pretty close to the figures. Our per capita performance is even more humiliating and embarrassing. But Priti Patel is claiming that she's going to march into these countries and tell them that they have to take people who have managed to make their way to the United Kingdom because, you know, they speak English or they have family here already, or whatever the reason may be. They've just chosen to come here instead of all the other countries in Europe that already do much more than we do to shelter and to house refugees. So that's going to be a thing of beauty, isn't it? We are here to break the Geneva Convention and lecture you, a country that takes in way more refugees than we do, on your moral duty to take in the refugees that have got to the UK. The Sun and the Mail are already cheering it from the rafters, which is fantastic. and exactly what this policy is designed to do, to curry favour from the furiously hard of thinking. Whether it will work or not at the moment, I don't think it's that big a deal, because since Brexit, the public's obsessions with immigration have gone off a cliff, because you don't open your newspaper or turn on your radio every day to hear people grooming you to hate all foreigners. Mission accomplished in 2016. They don't need to do that anymore. I don't know, even by the standards of Brexit Britain, this is an astonishing situation. The interview I heard unfolded elsewhere, but I am keen to play it to you because it's incredible, really. The 1951 UN-sponsored Geneva Convention sets out the rights of refugees and the responsibilities of nations in granting asylum. Here it is, okay? The contracting states shall not impose penalties on account of their illegal entry or presence on refugees who come indirectly from a territory where life or freedom was threatened. That's the Geneva Convention. That is the polar opposite of what Priti Patel is proposing. She is literally proposing that we impose penalties on account of illegal entry or presence on refugees who've come indirectly from a territory where life or freedom was threatened. That weird British experience of the last few years of seeing ignorance that was once confined to the comments section on the Mail Online website now coming out of the mouths of cabinet ministers. You know, and again, it's one of those conversations that's hardly worth having. You say they're required to stay in whatever safe country they pass through, and then people who understand the law say, no, they're not. And even if it were true, which it isn't, it wouldn't address the fact that the numbers are so humiliating for anybody in this country who I was going to say subscribes to Christian values, but that's really unfair and actually quite obnoxious, because there are millions of people who are not remotely Christian in any way, shape or form, have no religious faith whatsoever, who simply believe in humanity, in compassion towards human beings. And then you've got the fundamental question at the heart of British politics at the moment is how many people care more about flags and statues than they do about children in dinghies in the middle of the English Channel. And that is why I say I struggle to know where the line is between what has been done to you and what you perhaps may be anyway. How have you ended up caring more about a statue than you do about a human being? How have you ended up with a government that cares more about flags than it does about children? I genuinely don't know, but perhaps naively, I don't put the responsibility at your feet. I really don't. I don't think if as much effort had been put into helping us be compassionate and decent as been put into helping us be hate-filled and ignorant, then the massive majority of people would be compassionate and decent. It's you know, possibly the simplest illustration of it is where the polling has gone on immigration, even though the reality has barely changed at all. The concern has plummeted because you're not being told every day about some Polish criminal or some Romanian offender, or I mean, I suppose also the number of people that rang us to talk about leaving the European Union to keep Muslims out is a very odd memory, but that was all there. It was all in the media that is not in any way systemically or institutionally racist. Of course, copyright. Ex-bloke at the Society of Editors responding to the truth dropped by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on the telly the other night. So I just find it astonishing. Here is, this is, if you were a politics student at university, this understanding of the Geneva Convention would probably get you thrown off the course.
There are 2 points there, aren't there? First, they're not obliged to. They don't have to claim asylum in the first country that they get to. But secondly, there was a scheme in Europe where that was understood to be the case. But of course, we're not part of the European Union anymore. So, I mean, what's going to happen? Can we send them back to France? Obviously not.
Well, first of all, since we've left the EU, and you've mentioned a scheme that we're members of, which was Dublin. Dublin did not work, and it was difficult to return people back to European countries, and it was incredibly inflexible. So in terms of returning people back, we're speaking to EU member states right now. And originally, as we were having the negotiations up to the end of transition, this was absolutely an issue we were pushing with the European Union.
But have any said that they will take people back?
Well, we're in discussions already with member states.
This is actually hilarious. And I'm not making light of the plight of people who are fleeing war and famine and similar experiences. But it's actually hilarious. The Dublin Convention, or the Dublin Agreement, was a legally binding freedom, if you like, to send people back to countries that they had come from. And we are no longer in it. This is where it's not working, so we're going to replace it with nothing. And then, of course, the question of how on earth are you going to persuade countries that are already taking way more refugees than we do, that they should also take in our refugees as well, when you've actually, your government has deliberately, consciously and explicitly removed the constraints of the Dublin Agreement, which allowed you to do precisely this thing that you're now saying other governments are going to do because you're going to ask them nicely. Oh, it's just incredible. And of course, the words of the Geneva Convention presumably are simple enough even for Priti Patel to fully understand.
On the subject of the morality of it, can I just quote to you the Geneva Convention, the relevant one? The contracting states shall not impose penalties on account of their illegal entry or presence on refugees who, coming directly from a territory where life or freedom was threatened, enter and present in that territory. In other words, you are not allowed, under the Geneva Conventions, it seems, to have a different system with penalties for people who come illegally.
Well, the Refugee Convention does allow for penalties to be imposed where a refugee has not come directly from a country of persecution. And what we are proposing, all the work that we are proposing through the command paper that will be published today, is in line with the Refugee Convention and in line with international law and the European Convention on Human Rights.
So the Geneva Convention says, and also the European Convention of Human Rights is, of course, one of Winston Churchill's proudest legacies, which Dominic Raab was secretly recorded last week or earlier this week, suggesting that we should throw in the dustbin and ride roughshod over it when trying to strike trade deals. So again, you know, there's a statue of Winston Churchill over there that some spotty student is trying to graffiti. To the tower with him! I am a patriot! Defend the statue! Here is one of Winston Churchill's proudest international political legacies that the current Foreign Secretary is pledging to trash, to completely yeah, that's absolutely fine. I don't care about Winston Churchill's political achievements or his international diplomacy. I only care about his statue. How many flags will Priti Patel have to wrap herself in to pull off the trick of being told, and in terms, the contracting states shall not impose penalties on account of their illegal entry or presence on refugees who come indirectly from a territory where life or freedom was threatened? That is about as categorical as you can get. Am I right? Is that black and white enough for you? The contracting states shall not impose penalties on account of their illegal entry or presence on refugees who come indirectly from a territory where life or freedom was threatened. And Priti Patel responds by saying, that's not true. Is she saying that that's not true as in the Geneva Convention doesn't say that? Or is she saying that she honestly has heard the words that you've just heard and concluded that they say the polar opposite of what everybody else has heard? I genuinely don't know anymore. I just know that if she wraps herself in enough flags, she could turn up on the telly tomorrow, claim that the moon was made of cheese. The second coming is happening a week on Tuesday, and a cure for the common cold has just been discovered in Stoke Newington. If she had enough flags behind her, there's a significant portion of this population that would believe every word.
Now, I couldn't have done it any better myself. It's clearly obvious that this new bill isn't there to satisfy people who are rational thinking, who are compassionate people. This is just there to really get the knuckle draggers all frothy at the mouth. I remember seeing a tweet from our muttonhead from Morley and Atwood. Yes, our Andre Jenkins, tweeting out how wonderful this new bill's going to be. And of course, she had the plenty of rational people, you know, absolutely taking the rise out of her rank stupidity. There were also one or two people there who were absolutely swinging from the rafters, thinking how wonderful this is and how patriotic it is. If I'm honest, I find it quite embarrassing to be English. Now, I could be looking at it in the wrong way, but I do. Every time I see a British flag now, I just cringe. I just absolutely cringe. Just so incredibly embarrassed that in my lifetime we will be doing stuff like this. And those people out there who are supporting this and thinking, yes, this is exactly what we need, you need to remember one thing. They're not doing this to protect you. They're doing this because, given half of the chance, they would prefer to do this to you. Just remember that. But anyway, I shall leave the video here and I hope you enjoyed it. Until the next time, I shall bid you farewell and take care.